Okay, hello, everyone. This is Dr. Garrett Smith, known as the nutrition detective around the YouTube parts, and we are here for another Love Your Liver live stream, number 89 in a row. Haven't missed a week in 89 weeks. So today I decided to just do all subscriber Q&A because I've been hitting on some pretty heavy topics the last couple weeks, if you haven't noticed. So I decided to just go all questions today. Remember that super chats are enabled. So if you want to get your question to the top of the queue, like good old Ramon does every week, you can do a super chat and that will get you to the top. So I don't always get through a ton of questions. So that is one way to get your question answered. So let's see. We do have one super chat so far. Allison. I've heard/read that Matt Blackburn is promoting sodium fluoride toothpaste, such as Saint, all capitals, SAINT, at 0.24% fluoride. Your thoughts, not the big boogeyman people think. For those who follow Mr. Blackburn, he apparently he apparently reconsiders his stances on things quite often and realizes he made mistakes quite often. Now, he did jump on the protocol train and the bioavailable copper train, and he's been on the eating liver train and the repeat train, all things that I tend to help people repair themselves from later. Now, let's just theorize that all the stuff that I've been saying causes calcium dysregulation in the body. Calcium dysregulation would be too much calcium in the places we don't want it, like your soft tissues, your ligaments, your tendons, your brain, your heart. Anything where they would use an x-ray to find a problem, like, let's say, example, mammograms. What do they find in a mammogram, folks? It's an x-ray. What are x-rays good at finding? Calcium problems. So they look for bone breaks because that's a calcium problem, if you understand what I mean. The bone is mostly made of calcium and it's broken. So you can see the dark area where there's supposed to be bone, right? And what they see in mammograms is they see calcium deposits. That's what they find. So anyway, calcium in places it's not supposed to be, which is pretty much the basis of all your organ diseases. How that happens can be from a mix of things, but calcification is basically how things slowly break down. And then there's not enough calcium in the places it should be. Like, I don't know, your bones and your teeth, which basically I look at teeth as outgrowths. They're bony outgrowths that are just not inside your body, if you know what I mean. So let's theorize that all this calcium dysregulation that's been encouraged, whether it's through copper toxicity will cause calcium problems. Any kind of vitamin D that people are encouraged to eat by mouth. I saw somebody talking about putting mushrooms in the sunlight the other day to try to eat mushrooms to get natural vitamin D. Don't do it. Don't do it. Vitamin A toxicity, which would come very regularly from eating things like cod liver oil and eating liver and trying to do carrot salad and all these other nonsense things that people do. So let's say somebody had a big history of doing all these things that cause calcium dysregulation and they were getting teeth issues, dental issues. And then they reconsider fluoride. It doesn't mean that it's not a problem. It means that this person potentially has run out of, they can't quit what they've been doing. They're not ready to abandon all of it. And so they're having to try to do something to fix the problem while it's still going on, to medicate the problem. They're trying to medicate the toxicity away. The symptoms of the toxicity, they're trying to force it to go away. You don't have a fluoride. What they're saying is that, you don't have a fluoride deficiency in your teeth, right? Fluoride may be able to go in there and bind to some of your teeth, to some of the minerals in your teeth, make it look and feel a little better, maybe, while it rots away at your brain. But it's not fixing the root cause of the problem, which is calcium dysregulation. So, do I think that just because an influencer has decided to try fluoride again, that it's not, they're putting fluoride in the water. Do you think that that means it's okay? Really? So really, the things that they fortify dairy with vitamins A and vitamin D. What do I tell people that are poisons to eat? They put fluoride in your water. They fortify your bread, your flours. These are outright evidence that they are bad for you and me and all of us and your animals too. So no, do I think that just because an influencer has reconsidered a stance and has a history of reconsidering his stances and realizing he's made mistakes in the past, I don't think that means anything to me or my people. No. Next thing you know, he'll jump on the iodine crazy people train, and he'll be taking massive doses of potassium iodide and ruining his thyroid. I'm just throwing it out there. These are things that all of us have done, or many of us have done in the past, where we are grasping at straws. We don't know why we're getting sicker. We're doing all the things that we thought were healthy, and we're getting sicker. So we grasp at straws to try to stop the leaks, to try to plug the dam where all the leaks are happening by using poisons to slow down detox. So things look a little better for a while. And then once you're poisoned enough from that new avenue, then things fall apart even more. Your old problems are still there and you have new problems. Those of you out there who have been experimenting in the health world a long time and you followed all these things, you've done a lot of them, feel free to stay in the comments. How many of us, our health decline started when we started reading about how to be healthy on the internet? This number is staggering. Like you were maybe a teenager or maybe a 20-something, and you decide, I read this on the internet that this is why everybody's sick, like Candida phase, where everybody goes through the Candida phase. And everybody thinks that Candida is the cause of all disease. How many of us went through that? How many of us went through the toxic metals are the cause of all disease problems? We've all been through these same phases. And most of us got messed up worse by doing these things. There is no fluoride deficiency in your teeth. That means if it's not an essential nutrient and it's not correcting a toxicity or a deficiency, it is a drug-like effect. It's as simple as that. It's grasping at straws, trying to stop the bleeding, if you will. So that's my opinion on that. Hold on. Shane asks, how do you recommend managing / handling HPV / herpes? Is this a vitamin A problem? I have talked about viruses before here. Viruses, I talked about it in kind of the autoimmunity episode from one or two ago. I do not believe in virus theory as it stands at all. I believe viruses are evidence of toxicity in the system. And there are very convoluted ways that the scientists have tried to make these things show up in solution. When you start looking at all the stuff they do to try to find viruses, it's a giant process that could create all sorts of things in the mix. Viruses are evidence of toxicity present. That's it. Why would you have a recurrence of viruses? Because you probably either stirred up toxicity or you got toxic from something new. That's why they disappeared and then they came back. And what do they measure typically to find viruses? They measure antibodies. They don't measure the viruses themselves. They measure the antibodies. Antibodies, if you watch my autoimmune episode, are markers of toxicity. Antibodies are the things your body makes to bind to poisons. The original definition of the word virus means poison. They're telling you what it is. We are poisoned, and then they look for evidence of the poisoning, and then they give us more poisons to try to make the poison disappear by shutting down detox, which then puts less poisons in your blood because you shut it down. And then you see the viral load go down. And then what happens later? It comes back worse than before. So HPV, the funny thing about, I've been over this in one of the old episodes. I don't know if I'm going to find it today. Yeah, here's a quick. So arginine. So let's back up. So first of all, for those of you who want a real background on what we talk about toxic bile theory here as being the root cause of all chronic disease. Toxic bile, your liver by definition makes bile. The liver is processing poisons, right? So how does think of a sewage treatment plant? It has to get rid of its poisons, right? Sewage treatment plants treats poison. Your liver filters poisons out of the blood. And anybody who says the liver is not a filter is either not very bright or doesn't understand the definition of what a filter is. Okay, the liver is by definition a filter. A filter is something that takes stuff out of something else, especially fluids. Does the liver take stuff out of your blood? Yes, by definition, it's a filter. Okay, the liver stores toxins. And anybody who says that's not true doesn't know anything about the liver. The next thing is the liver is a waste or sewage treatment plant. It takes things and it processes them into other things. And then if you don't know about the word biotransformation is a term that is used for when the liver gets one toxin, and as it's processing it, it turns it into more toxic stuff. Okay? Generally, if you read the research, we can agree that carotenoids, the plant form of vitamin A, is the least toxic of all the forms of vitamin A. And then as you go along to retinol and retinaldehyde and all that stuff, as you go down and you get to retinoic acids, if you know anything about the side effects of Retin-A, tretinoin, and accutane, isotretinoin, Retin-A is all trans retinoic acid, and accutane is 13-cis retinoic acid, and your body turns carotenoids into retinoic acids. It is extremely obvious in the research and in the side effects that the toxicity of retinoic acids is way higher than carotenoids. The thing that kills you, let's say as another example, the thing that kills you from alcohol poisoning, ethanol, an alcohol, retinol is an alcohol. The thing that kills you from ethanol poisoning, alcohol poisoning, is the acetaldehyde, the thing it turns into, not the alcohol itself. Okay? So, lots of people don't understand how the liver works, and they don't understand toxic bile theory. This is something that I'm bringing out to the world. Grant Genereux is slowly figuring this out. He's figuring it out along the way. And what do you have in your bile? You have biotransformed retinoic acid, which then this toxic bile leaks into your bloodstream and goes everywhere through your blood to cause problems potentially anywhere in your body, your brain, your heart, your muscles, your bones, your joints, your nerves, your blood vessels themselves. Okay. So things that can cause liver injury meaning by definition, it is bile leaking into your blood. It is toxic bile leaking into your blood. There's multiple places that it can happen. Again, go watch episode 71 of this live stream, which is what people have said is my best summary of toxic bile theory to this point. So if we were to look in the literature, and let's say there was something that people would say aggravated herpes, HPV, that kind of stuff. And so if we looked up arginine, right, people will say when you have herpes, eat a low arginine diet. Why? What would that do? What might arginine be causing? So what I just did a quick search for arginine liver injury PubMed. Okay. Came up with this paper called Oral Arginine Supplementation in Acute Liver Injury. And I'm going to tell you something here that is going to... Hold on one second. Give me 1 second to find another... I want to show you the... Oh, wait, hold on. There's a thing I call the duration paradox. Okay. So this first paper, oral arginine supplementation in acute liver injury. So I want you to understand, they said acute, short term. The duration paradox that I talk about, this is the thing that confuses people the most about why can I find research that says that, let's say, arginine is good for cholestasis and liver injury. But then here I am saying it's not. Short-term effects, short-term positives from things that are not necessarily essential nutrients. Arginine is, it's one of the essential amino acids, but you find long-term they cause problems, especially related to things that we notice with cholestasis, bile leakage, liver injury stuff. Okay. So in this oral arginine supplementation in acute liver injury, so they've induced a liver injury in these rats. Okay. Last sentence of it. Oral supplementation of arginine in an acute liver injury model improves significantly the state of the liver injury and reduces bacterial translocation to the liver and mesenteric lymph nodes. So people go, oh, arginine must be good for your liver. So we already know that many people know that a low arginine diet helps with herpes virus. And I'm saying viruses are toxicity in your blood. They are evidence of toxicity, especially from toxic bile leaking into your blood. Toxic bile leaking into your blood. This is gonna link to the next study here, so pay attention. Toxic bile leaking into your blood goes where to be processed next? It goes to your kidneys. Grant Genereux had chronic kidney disease that he fixed by going on a low vitamin A and generally low toxin diet. He was the only person his doctors had ever seen fix his chronic renal disease completely. Okay. He did it with no eggs either. Anyway, here's another paper. Did I put that link in here? No, there it is. Okay. So the second link. Detrimental effects of chronic L-Arginine rich food on aging kidneys. Chronic means long-term. So here we have oral arginine supplementation in acute liver injury. It looks like it helps. And here we have detrimental effects of chronic L-Arginine rich food on aging kidney, which means it then goes to the kidneys after the liver is injured. This is the thing. If you don't understand the duration paradox, you should not go and be going and reading research. Especially for those of you guys who are taking L-Arginine and L-citrulline, which is even worse. I went over citrullination in the autoimmunity article, and citrullination was a bad sign. So the more citrulline you had going on and forming things long-term in autoimmunity, was bad. Let's just go over these last couple sentences, especially for you guys who are taking arginine to help your sexual function. The results do not support benefits of long-term L-Arginine supplementation. It rather accelerates functional decline of kidney and vasculature. Oh my gosh, you're taking it for blood flow, right? And vasculature in aging. Thus, the long-term dietary L-Arginine supplementation should be avoided, particularly in elderly population. Who's taking the arginine to help their function the most? Who's taking beets and doing other things to boost their nitric oxide? It's not going to end well, folks. It's not going to end well. So, funny thing, they're saying don't take this long term, and we have the chronic L-Arginine high diets seem to make HPV worse. Do you see a connection? What I'm saying is toxicity in the blood. Where does the toxicity go after the liver? If it's leaking into the bloodstream, it goes to the kidneys. So where we see kidneys have problems. You following? The duration paradox is the thing that people will deny, and they'll say it doesn't happen that way. And why wouldn't a short-term study turn into a long-term thing? No. It absolutely. You can boost things short-term. Look at people who drink coffee long-term. In the beginning, it helps their energy. Long-term, it makes them tired. Erection drugs, Viagra, Cialis. In the beginning, they help. And over the long term, you know what happens to men who take these too often? They get to the point where they can't get it up without them. And then eventually they stop working entirely. Okay, duration paradox is the most real thing out there. This is the pharmaceutical medications. They help at the start. Help. You're using a poison to make your body do something. Over time, they stop working, and sometimes they even start causing, if you look in the side effects, go look at any medication, and you'll find that over time, the side effects include the exact same symptom you're trying to treat. Do you get it yet? Short-term studies are what all the companies like to put out there because they usually look good. Long-term is what they're afraid of. That's why they don't like to do them, because they're expensive, and they're probably going to show that the product is crap and damages people. So arginine, low arginine diet, and they go with a high lysine diet. I haven't figured out what lysine does, but is lysine maybe just counteracting something the arginine does? Probably. Is it just a way of shifting the amino acid balance? Is it a way of shifting the recipe of the bile? So if you don't understand this is another part that I talk about. There's two ways that you can help health in toxic bile theory. You can change the recipe of the bile so that it is less toxic. Do we know exactly how to do that yet? No. We do know that certain diseases show up more with a certain bile acid profile in the blood. But we can also make it so you leak less bile into the blood, because then it almost doesn't matter about the recipe of the bile if you have less of it in the blood, because you shouldn't have any bile in your blood. Okay. So that is that question. What we generally see is over time, any virus stuff that people have, it shrinks in intensity and frequency and duration. Do we treat viruses? No, we don't treat viruses at all. We do the same things, same principles and concepts for everything. We give the body what it needs. We stop putting toxins in the body as well as we can in this modern toxic world. You're not going to get away from everything. And then we facilitate the removal of poisons from the body, particularly the liver, through things like soluble fiber to tolerance and charcoal. That's it. That is the basis of what we do. You want to know the funniest thing I heard today? Somebody on Twitter said, "Show me evidence that white sugar has ever caused or has ever not caused an increase in health." And I was like, what? Can somebody go and show me how white sugar has ever proven to be good for people other than one little study that a guy did where he gave people a bunch of white sugar on a relatively low vitamin A diet and their diabetes got a little better? Do that today. How many of you did the Ray Peat thing where you ate tons of sugar? How many of you think that you could take a 50-year-old person or a 60-year-old person or a 70-year-old person and put them on a bunch of white sugar and think they're going to get better? The only people who seem to get a little better on white sugar for a short period of time are young people. And then it all falls apart. I asked him to show me any evidence that long-term consumption of white sugar was good for anybody. Show me the long-term case studies. Don't think he's going to answer that one. Imagine thinking that Mexican Coke is good for you. I hear that on certain forums now, people are still entertaining that smoking is good for people. People are actually entertaining this. Here's a great saying. You want to be open-minded, but not so open-minded that your brain falls out. People are actually still talking about they think smoking is good for people. And some people who are not experienced in the garbage dump that is the online health world will entertain these ideas for a bit. Go and drink Mexican Cokes and smoke cigarettes. I'm sure that'll turn out real well for you. I see all these people who have smoked for 40 years walking around. They're the healthiest damn people I see. They drink coffee all day and they smoke cigarettes and they drink Coke. And boy, these are just the healthiest people I've ever seen. And then you'll have the people going, but they eat PUFAs. Seriously, give me a break. Okay. Let's see. I wanted to see if I was missing any super chats. And if not, we'll go start at the top of the list. Oh, wait. Israel, I see your super chat, so I'm waiting for a question. So if you have one, just put it in. If it's just, and I forgot to say thank you. I forgot to say thank you, Allison, for the super chat. I forgot to say thank you. Sorry about that. And I forgot to say thank you to Shane. So I hope got those questions pretty well for you. Let's see. Oh, there it is. Okay. Israel asks, could you briefly explain how sugar causes cholestasis? Thank you. You're welcome. This is one of the things that a lot of people want to know. They want mechanisms. What is it doing? And I'm not always going to have answers for that. This is a very important thing. We've talked about black box theory here before. Black box theory. Think of a black box that you don't know what happens inside of it. I'm not talking about a black cube, if you know what I mean. A black box. It could be any color box. You want to make it a purple box, make it a purple box. It doesn't matter. The color doesn't matter. It's a black box. Think of that as your body. Here's an example. Think of how many mechanisms conventional medicine and science can describe. They can do mechanisms all day long. How many people are they helping to actually get their health better chronically long term? How's their track record? It's garbage. How many mechanisms do they have? A lot. So they have mechanisms up the wazoo. They're not getting people better. And I'm going to tell you that cellular mechanisms, all the cell studies that they're doing out there, these are short-term studies, like one turnover of a cell, and they'll tell you in those studies that retinoic acid is good for you and that you need it. And here's the mechanism. It's the RAR and the RXR and da-da-da. While people who are accutane victims and accutane survivors are here saying, accutane ruined my life. So, what do I care about? I care about what actually happens in the real world, in the whole system chronically, like just what I went over with that arginine thing. Short term in rats, it helped. Long term in real people, it was destroying their kidneys because it was causing toxic bile leakage over time. The duration paradox screws up all the mechanistic studies. But here, let's just see. I'm going to do fructose cholestasis mechanism. It's mainly fructose that causes the problem. And I bet we're not going to find it. So here we have just this one paper, fructose in the liver. I'm going to guess they don't give a mechanism, but they'll go over the trail of bodies that it leaves. Fructose overconsumption may result in insulin resistance, oxidative stress, inflammation, elevated uric acid levels, increased blood pressure, and increased triglyceride concentrations in both the blood and liver. So, and see, here's another one. I'm just going to read this real quick. This is the mechanism part of the, where was it? Let me find the quote. High fructose feeding. I'm not going to put this. Okay, so a mechanism. Recent data, just as an example of a mechanism. Recent data showed that high fructose feeding induces intestinal thioredoxin interacting protein, TXNIP, which binds and regulates GLUT5-mediated intestinal fructose transport. Where does that take us? It doesn't take us anywhere. It doesn't help. None of that helps. Let's see, I'm looking for more. They have tons of mechanism stuff in here. Yep. Let me go see if I can find anything else. Let me do this. Let me do chronic fructose cholestasis liver injury PubMed. Let's see what we got here. So we may not have so let me just go through the results of this paper. Let me put this in there. This is where, like, seeing the forest for the trees. If we see that consuming a lot more fructose causes liver disease, do we need to know the mechanism? Knowing the mechanism is what pharmaceutical companies want to do, so they can make a drug that goes in and somehow theoretically blocks that mechanism. Mechanisms are for drugs. Real world watching stuff and saying this seems to lead to this more often, so do this less, is how we fix things, right? So here, consumption of fructose in patients with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease was nearly 2 to 3-fold higher than controls. So they just saw that people who had non-alcoholic fatty liver disease consumed 2 to 3 times more fructose. Does that mean the people without fatty liver disease consumed none? No, because I never said don't eat any fructose. I definitely think here's a simple thing. Reduce or eliminate added sugars. Okay, that's simple. Then, am I that worried about fruit? Not really. But if you think you have a problem with fructose or you don't tolerate sugar real well, then maybe you should reduce your fruit intake. Did I say eliminate? No. If you wanted to eliminate your fruit intake, could you? Sure. Am I making this all black and white and this is all bad and this is all good? No, I didn't do that. But here's your mechanism. In patients with NAFLD, hepatic mRNA expression of fructokinase, an important enzyme for fructose metabolism, and fatty acid synthase, an important enzyme for lipogenesis, was increased. In an AML hepatocyte cell line, fructose resulted in a dose-dependent increase in KHK protein and activity. What did that help move forward? There's a mechanism. Did that move us forward at all? No, move us forward at all. All we need to know was that fatty liver people ate 2 to 3 times as much fructose than controls. What's the mechanism there? They ate more fructose and they got more fatty liver disease. And how do they create? Oh, here we go. High fructose causes more prominent liver steatohepatitis. That is fatty liver with inflammation. Okay. High fructose causes more prominent liver steatohepatitis with leaky gut. Similar to high glucose in mice and attenuation reduction by Lactiplantibacillus plantarum DFA1. I just heard about a Lactiplantibacillus plantarum. I think it was another number just the other day. Leaky gut. What is the worst thing that's leaking in leaky gut? Everybody goes, well, leaky gut is leaking in proteins into the blood and you're having immune reactions to them. No, you're having toxic reactions to them because you're not supposed to have these whole proteins leak into your blood. It acts as a toxin. You bind antibodies to it and you try to clear it out of your system. What causes leaky gut? I've been through this before. Toxic bile damaging your gut, especially toxic bile that contains retinoic acid, which is used as a chemical peel on people's faces to dissolve the upper layers of skin. So if it can dissolve the upper layers of your face skin, what do you think that toxic bile containing retinoic acid coating your intestines, do you think it could cause leakiness? Yes. So you then leak toxic bile into your blood. It is the toxic bile that is the mechanism. So what do they just say here? High fructose causes more prominent liver steatohepatitis, fatty liver with inflammation, with leaky gut. And similar to high glucose administration. Okay, so don't eat a crap load of glucose either. Sugar is half glucose, half fructose. Somebody's going to sit here and tell me that white sugar is good for you. Really? Good luck with that. Tell me how that works in 20 years. I don't think you'll get there. I think you'll realize it was a mistake long before that. So I hope that answers it, Israel. Mechanisms, people want mechanisms. That's a drug thing. That's a pharmaceutical thing. We don't need to know mechanisms. We need to know how this stuff, I'm trying to be nice with my words on YouTube here. We need to know how this stuff works. What do they use to cause cholestasis, aka liver injury, in animal models? High fat diets, high fructose diets, low protein diets. That's what they use. So what should we not do? We should not do high fat diets. We should not do high fructose diets. We should not do low protein diets. Get enough protein. Don't eat too much fat. Don't eat too much fructose. This is not, did I just say none of these things or an all protein diet? No, I didn't say any of that stuff. Some people who can't wrap their head around it will say that I said those things. That's not what I said. People are going to twist my words out on the internet all sorts of ways. It's coming. So, but that's the mechanism. The mechanism is what happens in the real world, long term, in whole animals and whole people. That's all that matters. The mechanism, the cell studies do not matter. We only want the output. That's the black box thing. So you got the black box. You put in an input. High fructose into people and animals. High fructose diets. We do not know what happens in the black box. We can make up stories and narratives and cell models and all that stuff. And then something comes out the other side. That's the output. We are not God. We do not get to know. We did not design the black box. We do not know what happens inside of it. We can act like we do, but apparently modern medical science doesn't know, or we wouldn't have these problems. And I'm going to tell you that the great thing that cell studies are amazing at hiding is toxicity, because it's only one turnover of cells. It's not multiple turnovers where toxins are passed on and handed down, if you will. So mechanisms are just not my specialty. I'm worried. I'm concerned, not worried about, I'm concerned about getting people better. And what I found, this duration paradox, is massive. And this is why we're in such a bad state. Wanting to know what happens in cells exactly is how we got here. And that's how they hide what they're doing to us. So, and they sell us more stuff. So, thank you for the question, Israel. And Rustica asks, do you have an opinion about the herb chanca, piedra, phyllanthus, niruri for short-term daily use? For short-term daily use, I don't know. I don't know what it's doing. That mechanism, I don't know what it's doing. Some people have found it to be helpful for certain things short-term. Duration paradox of using an herb short-term to force the body to do something, I don't know. I don't know. Some people in the Love Your Liver Network have had success with it with certain issues. I don't know what it is doing. Like, we can see, you can look in the studies and it'll help with stones of various natures. How? What is it doing? Is there a long-term repercussion to what it's doing? Is it reducing bile flow? Is it changing the recipe of the bile? I haven't gotten into all that research, and I bet nobody's studied it. So, I don't know. That's one of those things. Do I have an opinion on it? I don't want to tell people not to use it, but I'm also not going to say that I completely trust it. I don't trust a lot of herbs. So that's your answer is I don't have a strong opinion on it, but I have seen some people have said they've had some success with it. If you've had success with it and you want to say so in the comments, or if you tried it and you didn't get along with it, post all of it. Seriously. I have never tried it. I do think long term, helping with things like stones would be fixing. Stones are generally related to calcium, generally. What do we do to fix calcium? Well, we stop putting in the poisons that are causing calcium dysregulation, which would be things like vitamin D supplements, vitamin A toxicity, copper toxicity. And then we make sure that there's plenty of magnesium in the system, because magnesium is one thing that can help dissolve calcium deposits. Some people have found using mineral citrates, magnesium citrate, potassium citrate, not calcium citrate. Don't put calcium citrate in there. If you're going to use anything citrate, make sure it's non-GMO. Make sure it blatantly says non-GMO on the label. It needs to blatantly say non-GMO, or else the citric acid that they've bound to the magnesium or the potassium is made by genetically modified black mold. And you don't need to be putting you don't need to be putting outputs of genetically modified black mold into your system. So, lemon juice, not lemon oil. Don't do anything from the peel of citrus, folks. Lemon juice is also high in citric acid and could help with that stuff. But yeah, I don't have a strict opinion on that herb. John gave a super chat. No Fauci grants for you with that attitude. I don't think Fauci would take a liking to me. His favorite supplement, just so you know, is vitamin D. He said it in an Instagram live video. It's not, you can find it on the internet. Search Fauci Instagram live vitamin D and you'll find the quote. Mr. Fauci loves vitamin D supplements. He wants you to take them. He wants you to take other things too. Birds of a feather kind of thing, right? So, thank you for that, John. And thank you, and Rustica. Let me get back up to the top. If you guys have any more super chats, go ahead. But I'm going to start at the top and start working my way down. I know we're already an hour in, so we'll probably go for another 35 minutes, and then I'll be done. For those of you who are here, if you're appreciating the content, if you want to like the video, we got 55 people in here right now, and only 22 have liked it. So you can X out of the chat and go like the video. That helps other people see it. If you're here later, make sure to both subscribe to the channel and like the video. Maybe leave a comment. Leaving a comment really helps too. Doesn't matter how short it is. Some of you leave great comments over and over. I love it. It's awesome. So, first question here. Dreams of my. Hi, Doc. My nose is redder than the rest of my face, especially in winter. What is this and how can I fix this? Thank you. So, this is kind of a thing that when people say, I want to fix this, right? We all have these very specific things that we want to fix. And the body's recovery doesn't always come in the order we want, right? If only we could make things happen in the order we wanted, you know. The nose, one of the things that we can generally see in chronic, what I would say liver conditions, like chronic alcoholics, are very easy to see long-term what the changes are, right? One of the things that people will notice in chronic alcoholics is they get the red nose. And I'm not saying you're an alcoholic. I'm using this example of the liver going downhill. One of the things we see is the red nose first, right? Which usually turns into the red face over time. You've seen these people, especially men, who have the bright red, either the bright red nose or the bright red face, right? And it goes down to like often maybe here or maybe their neck. And then it stops and it's just like red. that's a liver problem. That's what alcohol ruins, right? Well, I mean, that's what everything eventually ruins. But then they also tend to get, you know how they tend to get that bulbous nose, right? We've all seen this, especially in older men. Well, this just seems to be some sort of manifestation of liver issues. The liver also opens up into the eyes, and that's why with jaundice you see yellow. In Chinese medicine, they say the liver opens into the eyes. And in conventional medicine, jaundice, when the liver's really messed up, the eye whites will get yellow. Well, the nose is right by the eyes, right? So there's probably some spillover into it. So with one of the things that happens, I believe, in the colder months is that the liver slows down, right? Heat tends to speed things up, happens in chemistry. Heat accelerates chemical reactions. And I think heat actually causes us to dump more bile. And cold does the opposite. Cold tends to make us slow down our bile production, and chemical reactions tend to slow down. Where would this happen the most in the body? What are the parts of people that tend to get cold the quickest? Fingers, toes, if they're exposed. Let me give you another example of where the blood flow is the worst. Well, ears, right? Ears will get real cold. Places where your blood vessels come to a small ending. Okay. So, like, think of the little blood vessels, how they have to be really, really small and they come out to an end. An example of how this can manifest when you're taught in medical school that you're going to inject a local anesthetic and, something to numb an area. You can get the anesthetic with epinephrine, adrenaline, or without it. Why do they use the anesthetic with adrenaline? Because it clamps down blood vessels. So there's going to be less bleeding in the area. Okay. So like lidocaine with epinephrine. The epinephrine is in there to clamp down the blood vessels around an area. Okay. Do you want to know the areas that they say to not use lidocaine with epi, as they call it, lidocaine with epinephrine? Fingers, toes, nose, and for men, hose, if you know what I mean. Okay. Do not inject lidocaine with epinephrine or other anesthetics with epinephrine in those areas, because if you close off the blood vessels to a finger or your nose or your hose, it may necrose, as in tissue death, because you just choked it of blood. Okay. So these areas have, fingers, nose, toes, hose, ears. Ears will often get bright red when it's cold, right? Or those of you who have eaten foods that you don't get along with, your ears sometimes go bright red. These areas, that they have interesting blood flow because they're the end points of capillaries, the smallest blood vessels. Why is this happening to you? I mean, the redness, I think, is, how else would, let's say, the bulbous nose of an alcoholic? First, you'd probably have some sort of weird increased blood flow there, which is the redness, right? The nose gets red first, then the whole face gets red. This is just a reflection of liver health. So as we got your liver better, at some point, your nose would likely become less red. If for those of you out there who have done the program, been working on this stuff with me, if you've had a red face or red areas that have gotten less red over time doing this, please, you can comment in the chat or you can comment in the comments section after this is up. But yeah, it's something that I think is just going to go away. You could try, one of the things that all these problems cause is calcification. To try to accelerate it, you could try, I'm not saying this is going to work. I'm saying you could try this. You could try topical magnesium on your nose to kind of help decalcify those little capillaries. But I'm going to give you a warning. First of all, if you're using anything on your nose with coconut oil, Coconut oil is extremely pore clogging, folks. If you did not know this, everybody thinks that coconut oil is so wonderful. Coconut oil is extremely what's called comedogenic or pore clogging. This is why a lot of people break out when they put on anything with coconut oil on their skin, especially on their face. So if you're using anything with coconut oil in it on your skin, you might break out, even if it's got magnesium in it. And magnesium on the face just doesn't seem to, the face doesn't seem to like magnesium very much in terms of breaking out. So doesn't seem to cause the problem elsewhere, but on the face it seems to. But that's the only localized idea that I could give you in terms of helping with that in that area. But it's a systemic problem that is manifesting as a local symptom. That's my opinion on it. Let me just make sure nobody else snuck in. Yeah, somebody was saying gives a whole new meaning to Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, right? And then what do they, Santa, right? Santa's always big and chubby and kind of red and with a big nose himself. But it's that bulbous nose that's really like, and then so long term, right? We often see that red face. I'm just gonna expand on this. The bulbous nose, the red face, and we see the hard belly. The hard belly is a big sign that your liver is in a very bad state. So, but then what can happen to chronic alcoholics? This is also like a duration paradox kind of things that can, as the liver gets worse, what usually happens to people in the early days of their consuming alcohol? They gain weight, they get heavier, they get fatter, they get puffy from inflammation. Inflammation is your liver not doing so hot and pumping toxic bile back into your blood. What happens to chronic alcoholics if they live long enough? What happens to their weight? They usually start getting skinny. They get the skinny arms, they get the skinny legs, but they still have the hard belly. And they tend to start looking really red in the face. So you can start out with a toxin making somebody overweight. And then as the liver gets sicker and sicker, they proceed into underweight. They can't hold weight on. This is like kind of like the duration paradox, where something can look one way in the short term and then look totally opposite in the long term, but it's the same poison. This is why toxicity can cause some people, most people, to gain weight and other people to really lose weight and be unable to hold it on. The same everybody wants the toxin to either make you fat or make you too skinny. And that's not how it works. That is not how this works. So next question, inspirational. Is raw milk okay to drink? Am I drinking it? No. Do I think that milk is generally, the whole milk, why do people pick cow's milk anyway? Why don't you go milk a different animal? Why don't you drink dog milk? What is the deal with the cow? Really? I mean, really, when you think about it, why don't people drink goat milk more? Why don't people drink sheep milk more? Why don't people drink other milks more? Why is raw milk okay to drink? I'm not going to drink it. It's not going to be on my programs anytime soon as endorsed. The idea of taking milk out of people's diets for health has been around longer than pasteurization. It's extremely high in vitamin A, it's extremely high in vitamin D for a food, and it's extremely high in calcium for a food. Gosh, how could we cause calcification problems in the body? I don't know, give them vitamin A, give them vitamin D orally, and then load up a bunch of calcium to throw some gasoline on the fire. Sounds like a good recipe to me. Gosh, I wonder why taking dairy out of people's diets has been around longer than pasteurization. That everybody blames pasteurization and homogenization. That only made the problem worse. The weirdest thing I think, and this is just a brain exercise, why in the world Are we drinking cow's milk? When if you wanted to drink milk as an adult, you should be drinking human milk. This is the weirdest thing. I mean, and I'm not advocating this. I'm saying, why is somebody not getting in like an army of lactating mothers and feeding them an amazing diet, keeping them as healthy as possible, and just hooking them up to breast pumps all day? And that could be their job. Why are we suckling from other animals when humans make milk? Doesn't that seem weird? And yes, I know grown people suckling from grown people is weird. But isn't it weirder to be suckling from an animal? I'm not getting into vegan arguments here. I'm just saying, isn't it weird to be like trans species suckling? What is very high in milk, especially human milk made for humans? Lactoferrin. Am I going to be getting lactoferrin from human milk anytime soon? No, it's not an option. Don't know if I would anyway. It'd be, in society, it'd be too weird. People are drinking camel milk, and camel milk is extremely high in lactoferrin, and it's the closest lactoferrin to human milk, to human lactoferrin. But anyway, what do high school kids who want to gain weight the fastest do often? If you've heard of the Go Mad diet, the gallon of milk a day, Go Mad, gallon of milk a day diet. They drink a gallon of milk in addition to their 3 square meals a day. And they generally lift heavy, and they take a lot of rest. I gained in high school 15 pounds over a summer. I think that was over I think I gained 15 pounds in a month. I was only doing half a gallon of milk a day. Was it all good weight? No, it was not all good weight. Milk is a growth food. If you are an adult and you are done growing up, what is the only other way you can grow? Out. I gained 15 pounds in a month. Only half a gallon of milk a day. Did I get fatter? Yeah. Is one of the things about why do they have you drink calories? The best way to get fat, folks, or to gain weight is to drink calories. Why is that? Because calories you drink are not registered by your body as food that fills you up as much as food you actually chew and eat. Okay? So drinking calories like sodas and fruit juice and milk is part of the problem today. Drink water. Good, clean water. So, is it the pasteurization / heating of milk that causes more problems? I'm continuing the question. It makes the problems worse. So yes, I kind of already answered that. What about yogurt? If made from raw milk, yogurt still has to be heated. Is yogurt okay? Heating milk and adding some of those cultures to it may actually help move vitamin A down some of the detox pathway. But what do they tell you about moving vitamin A down the detox pathway? You can actually make it more toxic as it goes along. One of the greatest examples of this is probably the China study. What did they feed the mice and the rats in that study? They feed them casein or casein protein, one of the major milk proteins. And if you haven't seen my article on here, let me put up my article for so this is my old self. This is my research forum, which I was the only one who was posting. But I have an article here that shows that and Grant has been over this before, and I've been over it. There is vitamin A in the fat in dairy. There is vitamin A in the whey in dairy. And there is vitamin A in the casein in dairy. Those of you who have frozen milk, or especially frozen colostrum, will notice that these things turn very yellow when frozen. What do you think's in there that's turning them yellow? Colostrum is the highest in vitamin A. So people ask me if they can sub out colostrum for our lactoferrin, and I say, if you want to get a really nice dose of vitamin A, I guess you could. If you're trying to avoid vitamin A, I wouldn't do colostrum. There's a reason it's yellow. Lactoferrin is a protein isolated from dairy, so we avoid lots of the problems with dairy. But yogurt could move these things along. Yogurt may have some bacteria in it that can help, that has ADH and ALDH that can move some of these things along. And it could help with a fermentative dysbiosis. And if you want to know more about my view on probiotics, that's inside the Love Your Liver program. I never felt good on cultured dairy. I'm a putrefactive type, so I don't do cultured dairy. But I don't think I do not think humans were designed to drink milk from other animals. I think some can get away with it, but I don't see the evidence out there of it being great long term. And I do see, I'm trying to teach my kids the ways to, let's say, the easy ways to not gain weight in our society today. One, don't drink calories. It's very simple. Mexican Coke is a health food. No, sorry, it's not. So no, raw milk is not going to save the world. And if you really wanted milk, I mean, why not get the stuff that God designed for humans? Human milk. I mean, why not? And on the goat milk aspect, where people say goat milk is healthier than cow milk, goat milk is something like, I've seen stats places where goat milk is 4 times higher in vitamin A than cow milk. But they say it's easier to digest. I'm pretty sure that me giving my son goat milk as we were weaning him from breast milk, he drank a lot of goat milk. He went through a gallon of goat milk a week. And that was mixed with breast milk. I'm pretty sure the vitamin A toxicity gave him his anaphylactic tree nut allergies eventually, which I went over in another live stream about the connection between high vitamin A intake as children and later allergies. I think that's just 1 or 2 podcasts or live streams ago. So, no, I'm just not if you're going to have dairy in your diet, do not make it a main food. That's what I can say about that. I don't think it's a great inclusion. It's not going to be recommended on my programs. I mean, people can eat whatever they want. Here's the thing, folks. You can eat whatever you want. I don't care. I don't care what you eat. People seem to want me to care. I don't care. If I cared about what you ate, I'd be dead of stress. If I cared what everybody ate, I'd be dead of stress. Why would I care? I am a guide helping you to figure out what is good for you. If you want generalities, most people, I don't think, should be drinking dairy and eating a ton of dairy. Does that mean you could never have it? No, it doesn't mean that. But are there things that you should not, in my opinion, not be regularly consuming? Yeah, dairy's one of them. People in this whole vitamin A detox world are getting into all sorts of things where they're trying to justify being able to eat high vitamin A foods again, whether it's dairy or whether it's eggs or whatever. You're going to ruin the whole thing. You're going to set yourself back. You're going to have to dig yourself out of a hole later. It's very simple. It's a mathematical equation. If you take in more of the toxin than you eliminate in a day, you are slowly accumulating toxicity in your system. That's it. Can you do things to shut down the detox process that will make people feel better quickly, but long-term have totally retarded the process? They've slowed the process down. Yeah, absolutely, you can do that. If you don't know what you're doing and you're following the wrong people, you might not get where you want to go. You might feel better in the beginning, and then all of a sudden later, as the liver overflows and starts leaking more, your old symptoms come back and new symptoms come back with it. And then you wonder why, and you double down on what you were doing, the mistakes you were doing before, and it doesn't work anymore, and the problem gets worse. And then you don't know what to do. And then these people, if they're lucky, they often find me, or they go, I heard what Dr. Smith said. He said not to do this, but I decided that I'm going to keep doing it because it felt good. And now here we are, and I get to undo all the damage later. Yeah. So let me just double check for any more super chats. No super chats. Okay, so let's go back to the next question. Free Michigan says, I can't digest meat right now. Should I supplement with taurine and B12 or anything else? I'm not going to tell you to supplement with anything because that could get me in trouble. The things that are in meat that are generally either not found in other foods or not found in significant amounts in other foods are zinc, B12, and taurine. That's what I got. Now I know at least one vegan in the Love Your Liver network who says being vegan is the way to go. And he supplements zinc and taurine and B12. The things that are really only found in significant amounts in meat, which is an interesting approach. How one could claim that humans are not supposed to eat meat and yet have to take the things that are only found in meat is an interesting argument stance. Right? So, Grow and Easy asks, I just had some dental work done. The local anesthetic without epinephrine is causing me to feel like grinding my teeth. I'm sure that's the cause. I'm sure that's the cause as it has happened before. How can you fix this? Well, as I have a saying, the poison always wins. You can't outdo the effects of poisons with supplements, or at least with the things that we tend to use, because we are not trying to suppress the body. So what you're asking me to do short term is, how can I suppress the body's response to this? I don't have great answers for that because that's not what we do here. You could suppress bile production, which is likely what's going on. One of the first things to do, if you have TMJ out there, folks, if you have jaw problems and TMJ problems or stuff like that, the very first thing you should do is quit caffeine. Quit all caffeine. Quit caffeine. You don't sleep well on caffeine. I forget, if somebody wants to remind me, if somebody wants to look it up, I'm not going to look it up right now, but the half-life of caffeine in your system, I think, is 6 hours, somewhere around there, maybe 8 hours. So I'm going to do a little math with you here. If the half-life of caffeine was 6 hours, so you drink your cup of coffee, 6 hours later, you have half of the caffeine still in your system. This is what a half-life means. 6 hours after that, you still have 1/4 of that caffeine left in your system. 6 hours after that, you're at 18 hours afterwards now. You have half of a quarter, which is 1/8 of it left in your system. And then you go 6 hours after that, and you go, and that's the next half-life, and you're at 24 hours. You're at 1 day after, and then you have half of 1/8, which is 1/16. You still have 1/16 of the caffeine, assuming a 6-hour half-life, in your bloodstream. 1/16. Do you ever wonder why people will say chronic coffee or caffeine users, their sleep is always garbage, whether they admit it or not, whether they realize it or not? Because at the end of a day, you still have 1/16 of that caffeine floating around in your system. So imagine this, after the 24 hours, you have 1/16 left. So now the next morning, you have your coffee or your pre-workout, bro. Pre-workout is like early grave. I'm sorry. So you have 1/16 of the caffeine left when you have your next caffeine dose. So now you start that next day with 1 1/16 caffeine dose, right? So that means at the end of that 24 hours, you have 1/16 of 1 1/16 left. Do you understand? So you have more caffeine in your bloodstream at the end of day 2. A little bit more. And then at the end of day 3, you have a little bit more caffeine in your bloodstream. And you're slowly building up caffeine that is unmetabolized yet in your bloodstream because you never take a break from caffeine. It slowly builds up in your system. What happens as this caffeine slowly builds up in your system? Your sleep quality gets worse and worse and worse and worse. And your overall general anxiety levels go up and up and up and up and up. Another great term for caffeine is liquid anxiety, or coffee is liquid anxiety. Anybody who's ever had too much coffee or caffeine knows that this is the case. And as you become more of a chronic coffee drinker, caffeine user, you slowly become generally more anxious and your sleep is garbage. You can argue with me, that's fine. I don't care. People who have done this long enough know that I'm right. But again, duration paradox. What does coffee do to you in the beginning? When you're coffee naive or you've taken a break. Oh, the energy is so amazing. Right? It is. It really is. That's why coffee is such a thing to hook you. Is because if you just do whatever doses that you can take at the start, 1 cup or whatever, if you do a cup of coffee and you haven't been drinking coffee, it's really amazing. It feels really good as long as you don't overdose. So then what do you want to do the next day? Give me another fix, right? And then you're stuck on it. For me, I know if I were to do coffee 3 days in a row, it's really hard to quit after that without having a real come down. 3 days in a row is all it takes for me to try, for my body to want to be hooked again. So, yeah, but that's half-lives of caffeine. So if you're ever wondering why you don't feel good on coffee and caffeine, why you used to feel better and now you're slowly feeling worse and worse and worse, but yet the Ray Peat people say coffee is good for you. Just keep drinking more coffee. Get to the 12 cups a day that was said to reduce Alzheimer's disease risk. 12 cups a day. Who the F drinks 12 cups of coffee a day? And do you really think that you forcing yourself to drink 12 cups of coffee a day to have a little bit, supposedly a little bit of less risk of Alzheimer's is a good thing? Do you think maybe that those people who had less risk of Alzheimer's traded that risk for another disease? You can change the environment of the body so one disease is not going to happen, but another disease is coming. People can trade their exercise. They can go from doing triathlons and being all skinny and weak, but able to go forever, into lifting heavy weights, and they get bigger muscles and they can do short things heavier. Right? You can change your exercise and change your entire body shape and what you're good at. You can change your diet and your supplements to change from one disease pattern to another disease pattern. Should make sense. Okay, so let me go look again. Let me double check. Nope. Okay, so I think we got probably time for one more question before I got to go. Okay. Truth Blast Broadcasting. Yo, yo, yo. Gretchen said, good morning, all. Thanks, Dr. Smith, for all you do. You are very welcome. Sam asks, does accutane accumulate in body fat if it doesn't accumulate in the liver? What are some good remedies for when getting the flu? I have inside the Love Your Liver Network, I have the what to do if you're getting sick course. That's what, here's the simplest thing to do if you're getting the flu. Rest. Stop what you're doing. Stop reading stressful stuff on the internet. Stop reading stressful books. Stop watching stressful TV shows. Watch, if you're going to watch stuff, watch comedy. Laugh. Rest, smile, and laugh. That is the simplest thing that you could do. If you're going to take baths, don't make them too hot because that will dump more bile. Don't take too hot of showers. Rest. That is the very first thing. If you feel you are coming down with something, the very first thing you should do is stop what you're doing, reduce all your stressors, and chill the F out. And what does nobody do when they get sick in America? I can't stop working. I can't stop reading stressful news. But I'm watching this series, this murder mystery horror blood and guts series. Oh no, that's good for you anyway. Put everything down, go home and rest. And laugh and smile. So watch funny things, read funny things. That would be the best thing that you could do. Now, there's other things inside the course, but that's the one thing that nobody does. Go sit in a warm bathtub, hopefully without copper pipes, put some magnesium and potassium in it. I go over the recipe for that inside the Love Your Liver program because you can add way too much potassium to a bath very easily. And sit down, maybe turn off your brain, maybe listen to guided relaxation CDs. Do stuff to relax. What causes excess bile dumping, which is what the flu is? The flu and the colds are excess toxic bile leakage into your bloodstream. It's not a virus. But we find viruses in colds and flus. I just told you that viruses are a marker of toxicity in your blood. How would toxicity in your blood magically suddenly appear? You dumped a bunch of bile and it leaked into your blood. That's how it magically suddenly appears. Stress will cause increased bile dumping. So what should you do to slow down? The easiest thing to do to slow down the bile dumping, remove the stress. Okay. So the next question, does accutane accumulate in body fat if it doesn't accumulate in the liver? No. As far as we know, here's what we know about retinoic acids. Accutane being 13-cis-retinoic acid. Let me just show you, for those of you who don't want to believe that your body turns accutane, or your body turns vitamin A that you eat, beta carotene, retinols, retinaldehyde, retinyl esters, your body turns these things into 13-cis-retinoic acid, which is the exact same chemical compound as accutane. So here's the paper I just put in there. And I'll put another one. 13-cis-retinoic acid is an endogenous compound in human serum. 13-cis-retinoic acid is an endogenous compound in human serum. This means that your body makes it. Endogenous. Endo is from within. Gen is created from within the body. 13-cis-retinoic acid, go look it up, is accutane. And then the other paper I put up, determination of endogenous levels of 13-cis-retinoic acid. So they just said endogenous levels made from within your body. Determination, they're gonna measure how much. They're measuring how much of endogenous levels of 13-cis-retinoic acid, and then they put in parentheses isotretinoin, all trans retinoic acid, tretinoin, which is Retin-A, and their 4-oxo metabolites in human and animal plasma by high-performance liquid chromatography with automated column switching and ultraviolet detection. They just said that you make accutane and Retin-A in your blood, in your body, from vitamin A that you eat. And I could show you another study where they had people eat vegetables, and they saw that the all-trans retinoic acid, the Retin-A, tretinoin, went up in the blood. I think, did they also look at the urine too? I don't remember. So they ate carotenoids, and they got tretinoin. And if you don't remember, I went over the study where they gave veterans, U.S. Army military veterans, Retin-A cream, tretinoin cream to put on their face to supposedly prevent skin cancer. And they had to stop the study early because too many of them died before they were supposed to. Even after they took the people out, they wouldn't let people in the study if they thought they had a high risk of dying. They took them out of the study, and they still had to stop the study because too many of them died from putting Retin-A cream on their face. Ladies, people out there, if you're getting tretinoin cream, Retin-A cream, and you're putting it on your face, I hope you don't end up like those veterans did. You do absorb that into your bloodstream. So, accutane. If you don't know about the side effects of accutane, you should learn about it. I'm sure people on this live chat and in the comments would be happy to tell you about how accutane ruined their lives. I went over sexual side effects of accutane. Was it last week or the week before? I think it was last week. It's awful. Please don't damage your children's ability to have children in the future by giving them accutane. Please don't. We can try to fix it. I think we can fix it. Accutane takes the longest to fix. Of all the vitamin A toxicities, it takes the longest to fix. Now, so you were asking, do we store it in the liver? No. As far as I know, we don't store it in the liver. It goes, so beta-carotene, one beta-carotene, you can store this in the fat. This is why when you look at animal fat and you see yellow or orange fat, or the eggs are yellow or orangish, beta-carotene and the other carotenoids are very orange or yellow. The provitamin A ones, as they call them, one beta-carotene breaks into 2 retinaldehydes. 2. One beta-carotene equals 2 retinaldehydes. Retinaldehydes can go back and forth to retinol. This is a reversible, the body can reverse this reaction, retinol to retinaldehyde and back and forth. And retinal, they call it retinal to hide it from you that it's an aldehyde. Retinol and retinal can go back and forth. Retinols can be stored bound to a fatty acid ester. And you have to have choline to do this. So to store vitamin A in the liver or in the body fat, you need 2 things. You need a fatty acid ester, fats from your diet. And you need choline to run lecithin, which is phosphatidylcholine, lecithin, retinyl, acyl transferase. So the people eating higher fat diets and maybe eating eggs along with it, which are the best source of choline and the one that raises the choline levels in your blood the most, they're taking in the perfect delivery system to store vitamin A in their liver. Oh, and I also had the other study showing that I think egg yolks increase the absorption of carotenoids from any foods that they ate by something like, 75%? Or was it 3 to 4 times? I don't remember. So, yeah. Anyway. Accutane. So then once you go from retinol goes, so then we're going to go back the other way. Retinol, when you take the retinol esters out of the liver, because that's how they're stored, you take off the fatty acid ester, The retinol then goes through alcohol dehydrogenase. Some papers call it retinol dehydrogenase, but it goes through alcohol dehydrogenase to turn into retinaldehyde again. Retinal. And then that goes through aldehyde dehydrogenase, ALDH, also in some papers known as retinaldehyde dehydrogenase, to then become retinoic acid. Now, ALDH is not a reversible enzyme. So retinoic acid, once it's turned into a retinoic acid, it does not go backwards. It cannot go backwards. You have just unleashed accutane or Retin-A or what's called tretinoin, which is a chemotherapy vitamin A drug. You have just unleashed these into your system. They are going to be in your bile, or they're going to be coming out of the fat cells into the bloodstream and doing what retinoic acid does, which is basically it can speed up cell turnover. But remember the duration paradox. You speed up cell turnover too fast and short term, and then long term, what happens? It slows down. That's duration paradox. Retinoic acid looks great in cell studies. Real life, Retin-A on veterans, excess deaths. Accutane causes more problems than practically any other med on the market. So, retinoic acid is said to be, let me just find this so people can't accuse me of making stuff up. Retinoic acid, water soluble. I've had this before. Where is it? So Ronchen, RONCHN, green tech ingredient, sells water-soluble retinoic acid. Just put that link there. Retinoic acid, from what Grant and I have discussed, is generally water-soluble. Could it also be fat soluble? I'm sure they could do something to it to make it fat soluble. I don't know what Retin-A cream. Let me go look up the ingredients of tretinoin cream. Tretinoin topical ingredients. Come on. Package insert. Where is it? Can't they just make this easy? Okay. Each gram of tretinoin gel. Notice it's a gel. Gel is for usually stuff that is what? Water soluble. Each gram of tretinoin gel contains tretinoin in either of two strengths, 0.025% or 0.01% in a gel vehicle of hydroxypropyl cellulose, butylated hydroxytoluene, that's healthy stuff, and alcohol, 90%. Each gram of tretinoin cream, so that would be a fat soluble one, contains tretinoin in either of three strengths, 0.1%, 0.05%, or 0.025%. In a hydrophilic, that means water loving. Philic is loving, hydro is water. So they even said here it's a hydrophilic cream vehicle of stearic acid, which is a fatty acid, isopropyl myristate, polyoxyl 40 stearate, stearyl alcohol, xanthan gum, sorbic acid, butylated hydroxytoluene, and purified water. Okay, so they just said it's a hydrophilic cream, or gels are generally water soluble. Okay. So, I mean, I'm not going to say that. I mean, there's plenty of. I'm not going to say that you can't store retinoic acids in the body at all. But There is stuff in the literature showing that. Let me find it. Let me find it. So I want you to understand something about how much the body does not like the retinoic acids. Okay? You got to follow me here. Retinaldehyde, toxic in itself, goes through ALDH, aldehyde dehydrogenase, to become retinoic acid. This step only goes to retinoic acid. It does not go backwards. Like ADH, alcohol dehydrogenase, is reversible. It can go both ways. So ALDH is not. So once you make retinoic acid, which I'm telling you is the most toxic form of vitamin A, it can't go back. There is no returning. So does the body like this, or is the body kind of scared of this, making too much retinoic acid? Well, here's the title of the paper. Retinoic acid downregulates aldehyde dehydrogenase and increases cytotoxicity, cellular toxicity of 4-hydroperoxycyclophosphamide and acetaldehyde. So it increases the toxicity of acetaldehyde, an aldehyde. So let me explain this. So remember, retinaldehyde to retinoic acid is not reversible. It only goes this way. I'm telling you that retinoic acid is more toxic. That study just showed that retinoic acid slows down ALDH. If you're making too much of this, the most toxic one, your body starts saying, slow it down. Slow it down. Do not make too much of this. This is very bad for us. Slow ALDH down. And then what did they say? It increases the cytotoxicity of acetaldehyde. Any carbs you eat, some of them turn into alcohols, ethanol. Some of that ethanol is going to be turned into acetaldehyde. If the ALDH is not running well because you've got too much vitamin A retinoic acid being made, this slows down the ALDH. You build up acetaldehyde. Do you see? Do you follow me? You're going to build up retinaldehyde too. We went over stuff about showing how aldehydes, let's say as an example, were toxic to sperm. And what are they trying to do to make a male contraceptive pill? They're trying to make an ALDH inhibitor. So you build up aldehydes, which have been shown to damage sperm production. I don't know. There's probably no infertility plan going on. Nah, probably not. Probably not. Better hope so. But it's already in process. So that is how much the body hates retinoic acid, because I don't believe you can store it. So think about this. What would make retinoic acid more damaging in the system? You can't store it. You can't pull it out of the blood and put it somewhere because it doesn't get stored. And it's water soluble, so it can go just about anywhere except the fat. So why would the body, if it sees too much retinoic acid being made, you got to make some because that's part of how you get rid of it. But it's more toxic, so you don't want to make too much. So if you get too much, it inhibits ALDH. So that's how much the body doesn't want you to make too much retinoic acid. But if you keep eating vitamin A, you're just going to make more and more. You can't stop it. You can only hope to contain it. So I think that's about it. Let me just double check, make sure I didn't miss any super chats, because I do that all the time. A lot of comments today. Thanks, guys. I love all the chats. I'm just going to throw this out there. Thoughts on the nutritional balancing program and Dr. Wilson? Disaster. Absolute disaster. I basically would say that I do the exact opposite things of them on a hair test, almost the exact opposite things on a hair test. And I have gotten very, very broken. If you want to know how delusional I think that program in general is, I got a woman who had been on it for 3 years. 3 years. She almost lost her marriage because of how basically insane it was making her. All along the way, and she was working with the highest people in that group. She never got any better at all. Never got any better in 3 years. What they kept telling her when she'd say, why do I feel so bad? When am I going to get better? They would just say it's detox and retracing and to eat more vegetables. I don't think much of it. And we started getting her better fairly quickly. So you don't have to eat any more vegetables. She was like, thank goodness. Cooked vegetables. I mean, if you're going to eat vegetables, you should cook them. But generally, they are trying to eat the rainbow of vegetables and the most nutrient-dense vegetables, which are the most toxic in our estimation. I believe that plants put in a lot of nutrients when they have to protect themselves too from all the poisons that they make, right? If you got natives out with using poisoned arrows, they need to make sure they don't touch those arrows either, don't they? If it's a poison to your enemy, it's also a poison to you. So if plants are making poisons, they have to protect themselves too. And what do we talk about? A lot of the vitamin world is in our program. We talk about a lot of the vitamins, especially the B vitamins, are antidotes to poisons. They are specific antidotes. B12 is an antidote to cyanide, if you didn't know that. You can go and look up poison control papers and find that there's quite a few B vitamins in there listed as antidotes to toxins. So if you find yourself having to take mega doses of B vitamins to feel okay, what that means is you have a very specific toxicity pattern in your body that the B vitamin is band-aiding. Doesn't mean don't take it. If it's helping, go ahead and keep taking it. But if you're not working on the root source of that poisoning, it's going to stay. Right? If it's not getting better, and then if you've been taking a B vitamin and all of a sudden you feel like you don't need it anymore, or that B vitamin is making you feel bad now, you should stop it. Don't take mega doses of vitamins that are not doing anything for you. It's a very simple thing. Don't take any supplements that are not essential nutrients that aren't doing anything for you. Or if they make you feel worse, oh my gosh. If you take a supplement and it makes you feel worse, you should probably stop taking it. Does this seem like crazy advice? But what do other practitioners out there tell people? Oh, it'll get better. It'll get better. Just keep taking it. It'll detox you, and then all of a sudden you'll feel better. And you keep taking it for 1, 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 2 months, 3 months. And then finally you go, I'm not feeling any better from this. This is making my life suck. I quit. And then you know what the practitioner says? Oh, you just didn't take it long enough. You would have got over it. No. So, I just want to, I like these 2 comments from N Rustica. She's talking about, I'm sorry. I don't want to misgender. I don't know your gender. So I'm just going to say N Rustica said, And yes, I'm joking, but still, if I don't know somebody's sex, I'm not gonna. It's Will said it's ma'am. Anyway, that was funny, Will. That was funny. But Enristica, if you want to tell me, you can. Just don't say V and ver, please. The comment was talking about Retin-A. It's used around the world. You would think that there would be more epidemiology data. They're talking about on tretinoin and Retin-A. Besides that one VA study, which Veterans Administration, it was the VA, that was the vets, right? Where it's not established that the participants even used the medicine, which makes it even weirder, right? Because they sorted out the people they thought would die too soon. They took out the people they thought would die too soon, and then they still had to stop the study because they saw too many people dying earlier than expected. And there are 3 beta-carotene studies. 3 beta-carotene studies that have been stopped early. What's the connection between beta-carotene and all-trans retinoic acid, aka tretinoin, aka Retin-A? Beta-carotene turns into tretinoin. So, I mean, the fact that they even let that study come out, and then you start looking around the internet and you'll find all sorts of apologetics for it. Who are like, no, it couldn't have been the tretinoin. Because then imagine what would happen if they admitted that it killed people early. Could you imagine the lawsuits? If and when the class action lawsuits start happening and you ever see them, you make sure you contact me because I'll be an expert witness on this. So, and then the last comment from N. Rustica said, oh God, pushing out toxic bile seems too simple. Followed by a low vitamin A diet and select mineral supplementation is the challenge. Simple, but not easy. That's what this is. And then last comment from Anarustica said, as they said, crazy world, they turn kale into a processed food like Doritos. Yes, you can now eat your kale as chips. Just bonkers. And people will eat it. Kale is nasty. It's just nasty. And then when you look up, somebody remind me, what's the mineral that's like super high, the toxic metal that's like super high in kale? Was it tungsten? Let me look it up. Wasn't it something like tungsten? I'm going to watch the comments for this. I will find it. And if not, what is it? Let me go look if somebody put it up. Kalium, yeah. Oh, come on now. I know it was some weird mineral. Kale is a source of lutein and zeaxanthin. Somebody was asking the other day about lutein and zeaxanthin and astaxanthin in eyes. Those are all carotenoids. I'm against all of them. Kale has more vitamin A than any other leafy green. And there's as much calcium, although not in a form that's readily absorbed, in a cup of kale as there is in a cup of milk. Kale is also a great source of alpha-linoleic acid. Well, just so you know, one of the retinol esters you store in your liver is retinol linoleate. So kale has lots of vitamin A, kale has lots of calcium, kale has lots of a fatty acid that is known to bind to vitamin A and stored in the liver. Sounds delicious. It's also a cruciferous vegetable, is it not? Is it? I don't remember. Yeah, it's cruciferous vegetable, which are known to be toxic to the thyroid. This is amazing. Can we eat more? I would love, give me another serving. And this is why the people you know, or maybe you used to be, the people you know who are the biggest health nuts are often the sickest people we know. And if you used to be a health nut and you come here and you're going, oh my God, everything he's saying was what I used to do, and I didn't get better until I stopped doing all of that, this is what we're undoing here. And Rustica says, I am a boy. I should make a bigger profile picture. Okay, good to know. Good to know. So, yeah, none of you guys know the mineral that it was? Oh, what is that? Where is it? Thallium. There it is. Oh my gosh, imagine I just found this on Mother Jones. This is not a website I go to too often, if you know what I mean. Thallium. They don't even have the article. It's a link to Mother Jones from 2015, but it says kale is really good at taking up thallium, a toxic heavy metal from the soil. That was the one. Kind of like the tea plant, Camellia sinensis, is amazing at taking up fluoride from the soil. And rice is amazing at taking up arsenic from the soil. So, yeah. Be real careful with rice, you folks who are relying on rice. Arsenic is a real issue. I don't care who you are, what rice you're getting. It's like fish and shellfish. If you eat fish and shellfish regularly, I can tell on a hair test by your mercury, and often your cadmium too. So it's not just mercury, it's cadmium. It shows up on a hair test. And then as people reduce their fish and shellfish, whatever level of mercury and cadmium they had, it goes down. It's fairly simple. Kale, thallium, there's not a lot of, they don't do halogens on a hair test. So they don't do fluoride, fluorine. They don't do bromine. They don't do iodine, right? They don't measure those on a hair test. The research says that the hair test is not good at measuring those. That's why they don't do it. Some places do it, but the research says it's not good for those. It's not useful. So anyway, I got to get going. Oh, this is a list from Amma, a list of all the things she tried. Rainbow diets, keto, fasting, intermittent fasting, candida, parasites, heavy metals, Dr. Lugol's, vegetarian, and some more, I am sure. And she says, Doc is so right. Well, thank you. I'm glad that you're finding that we are. And she said 40 plus years of these various protocols. We don't do, just one last thing. We do not do protocols here. So if for anybody who is out there thinking about doing this, thinking about joining, thinking about sending your friends and family members here, we don't do protocols. You're not going to go into the Love Your Liver program and find a list of things to do and a list of things to take. What you're going to find is a really helpful group of people to help you learn how to navigate your own body and how to figure out what you need to eat. You, not everybody. If you actually think that all humans, there is one magical human diet that everybody should eat at any point in their health journey or recovery and at every age, I'm sorry, you have been misled. That's not how this works. Especially since there's been all the different areas of the world mixing the genetics together across generations, you're not the same person genetically that your grandparents were. Unless everybody's been living in the same area and staying there and keeping the genetics within a very closed loop. So you have to figure out what works for you. If you're 95% one genetic culture, heritage, and you think you should eat that way, but you have this other 5% in there that's actually manifesting in your genetics, and you choose to eat like this, you're going to feel bad if you're not open-minded to that little 5% that might be dominating a certain part of your metabolism and of your phenotype, of the way your body is expressing itself in the world. Okay? You have to be open-minded to this. Just because you grew up eating a certain way does not mean you should. Just because, I've done this example before, if your mom was Italian and your dad was Russian, and your mom cooked American Italian food your entire life growing up, well, first of all, American Italian food is not Italian food from 500 years ago. And second, if you got your dad's genetics for foods in many ways, then what your mom's likes to eat and what she may feel better on is not the same stuff that you might feel better on. This should not be like mind-blowing, but it is to a lot of people. If everybody in your family is getting sick and fat early in life, you could probably be pretty damn sure that everybody in your family is eating the wrong diet for them. This should not be hard. And just because with nature and nurture, you got your genetics and you got what you grew up with, what your parents or whoever raised you had you do. And that none of that means that these are automatically what you did growing up was right. Many of us have learned, like, what did I do growing up? I ate my Flintstones vitamins and I took my whey protein. And I used to think I was real healthy as a teenager, early teens. What did I eat for breakfast? Shredded wheat, sprinkled skim milk, shredded wheat, sprinkled with equal NutraSweet. I thought I was being super healthy, right? I was way ahead of the line. And then I'd take my Flintstone vitamin, I'd swallow it whole. Real healthy. Great way to get people sick. But what was I doing? I was doing what everybody said was healthy at the time. So, anyway, that's all I got for today. I'm just going to double check, make sure there's no more super chats. Thank you all for the super chats today. We got through both types of questions. That's good. Hope you all learned something. I'll be back next week with a topic and probably a testimonial. I'm pretty sure I didn't miss any today. So, okay. So for those of you who are still here, if you want to find more from me, Nutrition Detective is the website. I'm going to add, we now have these live streams as MP3s on Spotify podcasts and on iTunes podcasts. For those of you who are here live, I have not put that info in the signature of the video yet, but I will. I'll put that down there. And then, so that'll all be there soon. So you can find us there if you want to download the podcast and listen to it in your car. You know, don't have to look at my face if you don't want. But hope you all have a great weekend, and I will see you all here hopefully next week. And we'll just keep getting people better. If you need to find me, nutritiondetective.com. The Love Your Liver program can be found at members.nutritiondetective.com. And hope you all join the Nutrition Truth Army. We just passed 4,000 subscribers here, so thank you all. I'll see you next week. Bye now.